What's up, everybody? Yellow Turtle here with my guest co-host this week, Marcus, one of the co-founders of Metayacht Studios. Welcome to another episode of the LUKSOfam podcast, brought to you by KEEZ. LUKSOfam podcast is meant to be a short and informational show where we provide some takes on the latest LUKSO news in the space. Unfortunately, today, Beef could not make it as he is sick, so we wish him a speedy recovery and hopefully he'll be back soon. But instead, we have Marcus. So let's kick it off. Marcus, how you doing today?
I'm good, Yellow Turtle. I'm really good. Yeah, sad to hear about Beef being sick. I wish him a speedy recovery, but I'm also grateful that we have an opportunity to talk about Metayacht Studio in more long form. The amount of elevator pitches I've had to do is quite extensive, so going into depth, I'm really appreciative of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. This is going to be a fun episode. And like I was saying to you earlier, this is the first guest host that we've had on this show. So this should be fun.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll live up to Beef's abilities, but we'll give it a crack.
I love it. So for those of you that are new to, you and Metayacht Studios, can you give a brief background on how you transitioned from being a core contributor at KEEZ, kind of finding this Web3 space, and then ultimately transitioning into the Metayacht space?
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of interesting because, as you know, me from KEEZ, my co-founder and I, Maxwell, we had this idea to kind of venture in ourselves in the yacht industry for quite some time. So we had the idea a few years ago, but ultimately we wanted to learn a lot more about LUKSO because the LUKSO team spoke my non-Web3 language. I guess, where the reason why I joined KEEZ was just to ultimately learn and join effectively the LUKSO community was just joining in the conversation and asking questions to learn and develop that Web3 knowledge. So then we could, fulfill and facilitate and implement all these ideas that we had a few years ago. So Sage, in one PinkPill Twitter space, he hit me up. I didn't know who this guy was. And he basically said, I really liked what you said about the mission, values, who, what, why, effectively, that projects have to have. Could you help us out with this particular task? I didn't even know what KEEZ was, but I said, yes, of course. It seemed like you guys had already a flourishing project. And again, just in that space of wanting to learn, I jumped at that opportunity and effectively dove right in. And all of a sudden, the conversation about core contributor position came about. And again, I thought, okay, well, I'm still in that learning phase and I'm still learning, but I do want to help out with this community project that is KEEZ. So I started doing tasks related to BD. Again, a non-technical role, but still picking up here and there. And then I think now a month or so ago, Yellow Turtle, and you can attest to this, but I spoke to the team and decided it was the right time for myself to focus on Metayacht Studio and ultimately left the core contributor team. But I'm still a part and I'm still, interacting and trying to do all the things that KEEZ is doing and being a part of that community ultimately.
Yeah, and I think you kind of lived out the true mission of KEEZ, right? You came in, contributed in multiple ways, learned a lot, grew some good friendships with the community and with the team,
Yes,
and then ultimately kind of used those skills and those friendships that you created to go and venture off and do your own project, right? Do something that you're passionate about and that you want to do. The same reason why we kind of started KEEZ, right? Like we wanted to do something we were passionate about and then
absolutely.
get others inspired. So I think you're one of the first golden stories that we have at KEEZ. It's really awesome to see.
You're too much. I love it. Yeah, and it never felt bad leaving. Obviously, there's a little bit of emotion because you're right. Like we have become friends. I've never met you in person, but we get along well. I get along with Sage well, Rob, Beef, all these people in the core community team. And ultimately that fosters such creativity just being online, and just being involved and contributing in however you can. It's such a great culture that KEEZ has. And so it was prime for me to come in and help where I could. Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts a little bit on the difference between working in like a normal Web 2 environment versus working in a DAO, working in the Web 3 environment. Because at the same time, you're working a Web 2 job and working with KEEZ. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. Yeah. So at that particular time, I was working a Web2 company, again, just focusing on yacht design, but moonlighting in this Web3 space. And I think the culture is very much different. The culture of, okay, you can be in or be out, and whatever you gain from this is primarily what you contribute. If you are looking to learn, you have skills that are there from your previous experiences. That's going to be helpful, but ultimately it's a very much like a positive sum game when it comes to interacting and developing things. And of course, there are like items where, you know, because of resources of people, for example, we have to focus on a particular task. But again, anything can potentially foster in that culture where you are open and honest with everybody. So that was really refreshing, and that's something that I've really learned from and taken on board.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. That was off the script, but I was just curious to hear your thoughts because I think you'd have an interesting perspective, and you do.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's wise to tell the listeners I do have a little bit of notes in a script. I need to hit all my points.
and that was a little bit of a curveball there, but I appreciate
Keep me on my
it.
toes.
Of course. So, yeah, let's hop into Metayacht Studios. I mean, for the listener out there, definitely give us the rundown, give us the elevator pitch, give us the mission statement, and then, the end goal. Kind of, what are you guys planning on getting to within the next year or two? I'm very curious to hear this. It's a very exciting project that you're working on.
I think a good place to start with that question is what is like Web3 in terms of the tenets of Web3, how I see it is it's people owning their data, owning their systems at an individual basis, and ultimately contributing to a network that then ultimately will grow because people are building things, people are being inspired by other things, and that route to market is now so much, how do you say, it's just less than what it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago, even because of the computer, the internet, etc. And so I think where we get excited and the reason why we chose LUKSO as blockchain to build upon is Maxwell and I are creators. In our hearts, all we do is we create, and ultimately we create yachts, boats, and anything that floats in the water. So I guess a bit of history of myself. I studied yacht design and production at Solent University, and Maxwell studied transportation design at the Pasadena Art Center. And we met 4 years ago now. It feels like yesterday, at our previous employer. And so, whilst working in the industry, we just felt like we could give a much better experience to all these stakeholders, from owners, designers, and even the craftsmen that work on luxury products such as yachts. And so during the last bull run, we got really, involved. We thought we had become millionaires overnight, just like I think a lot of people did. But ultimately, we stayed because we started to learn about the technology from the likes of the PinkPill podcast, the key spaces, the community just talking the language that we understood. And so figuring out Web3 and digital ownership, that started to excite us in terms of like, oh, okay, now we can give a better experience to all these stakeholders utilizing the web ultimately. And so Metayacht Studio was formed and we started to get to work.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah,
I like
good.
Muting 4 years ago seems like yesterday. That's really cool. And then to bring it into the Web3 space and kind of see the potential right off the bat, and for to be here for different reasons than most other people, right? Like you said, like a lot of people in the bull market were making a lot of money and were very excited, but a lot of those people are gone now. And the true builders, the true creators, and the successful people later on down the road are still here building right now.
Mm.
So, hats off to you guys for sticking in it and, creating wonderful product, which kind of is a nice segue into, you said anything that floats on water. What about anything that floats in space too?
Yeah, we don't have the skills to facilitate space necessarily in the physical realm, but the nice thing about what we do in the physical realm is we understand space and we understand form to a really high degree. And so if you are looking for digital space yachts, I'm sure that we could again facilitate that. However, and land yellow turtle. However, yellow turtle, I do have to say, Maxwell was excited to do the space yacht. We did it, and again, it's our first project. But you might be the first and last. So again, we're open to other creators coming in and focusing on spaceships. That's all well and good, but there has to be a really interesting offer for us to go delve into that space aspect again.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it was a beautiful design, and people will be seeing it much, much more from the KEEZ podcast and spaces like that very soon. But yeah, it was so intricate, and like the style of it was, it blew me away. It truly blew me away. I didn't think it could end up that good, with the amount of intricate designs and detail that went into it. It looked awesome. But I think that's another good segue into discussing like the challenges of the unique world of Web3 yacht design. I think it's a concept that makes sense to me, but I think a lot of people maybe haven't heard a lot of. So if you could kind of explain, why do you need Web3 for yacht design? Why does it take it to the next level?
Yeah, there are multiple reasons and different ways that I could answer this. I think the most interesting for the listeners and for yourself even is like, and maybe I'll ask you a question, Yellow Turtle, is in the next 20 years, what do you think would be like such a turning point for design in our world? Like, what do you think is going to change in the world of design over the next 20 years?
Well, I think one of the biggest would be putting the power back into the creators and the designers' hands, right? I
Yeah.
think that there's a ton of products that people work tirelessly and dedicate their lives to it, and it ends up just getting like the company itself takes the credit, and the people higher up make the money from it. But
Yeah.
if you could design something like a yacht and then have your name attached to it, your universal profile attached to it every time it gets sold, rented, used in a video for music videos, whatever it may be, some percentage of the royalties go back to the original designer, the original creator of this piece of art, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be huge.
Absolutely. I think there's like, so that wasn't my answer. That's quite funny, but it is actually, it touches on the answer that I see as well. I mean, I think AI is probably going to be a really pivotal tool in our industry. I can already see the likes of the tasks that I was doing in my previous employment being taken over by AI, calculations, drawings based off those calculations, etc. And so in the next 20 years, I see there being like an ability for potential owners, people who like yachting, to almost like design their yacht and draft something really quickly and easily, getting us to a point of facilitating exactly what they want at a faster rate, or maybe not even that faster rate, but getting them exactly what they want, which I think
Mm.
is it should be highlighted. But like, and I guess this is where this ties in for us. What that means is potential owners, communities who are looking to design their yacht will be able to do that. But that requires data. The old status quo of a design studio, a yacht design studio, locking up their designs for no one to learn from is kind of dead in the water, because AI needs data and information for that to like develop in a better way. And
Mm.
so we're focused on giving and utilizing the LUKSO blockchain, Web3, to again protect our IP that we designed these vessels. And with LSB12 issued assets, we have that ability to show those designs forever. No one can take that away from us, but other people can learn from it. And ultimately, this network of AI algorithms can kind of, do its thing and machine learn, or however that happens. I'm not technical, so I'm sure there's some machine learning involved in that.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting perspective because I feel like for so long, you hit the nail on the head that most companies or design studios, really any company, right? Did they just lock up their plans, lock up whatever IP that they might have? And with the Web3 kind of wave, there's a shifted narrative that we, should have things that are open source, right?
Yeah,
People to learn from these things, build off of these things, and make them better, right? Like every iteration should be getting better. And if we
yeah,
don't allow people to iterate, we're kind of just staying stagnant. And then especially with AI and speeding up the process of things like design or of like the creative process, or kind of not really the creative process, but the bulk work that goes into figuring out where you want to go creatively, right? Like you're still being the one that's being creative, but AI is helping you get everything done faster. So now that was a really interesting perspective. I'm glad we gave different answers,
yeah.
and that
Me too.
that kind of tied into the same one too. I like that a lot.
Yeah, me too. And it's interesting. When I was studying, one of the things that we have to do as yacht designers is kind of have, especially if you're just starting out, is to have a parametric study. So you effectively get a lot of data points from different yacht builders and yacht designers, and create ratios, and then basically model your yacht with those ratios, knowing that if this yacht floats, then hopefully mine is going to float. And ultimately, the struggle that I had as a student was none of these yacht design studios were doing that. And so
Mm,
for my development personally, and I'm sure Maxwell can attest to something similar, for my development personally, it was a struggle always getting that data. But now with Metayacht Studio, I can say, well, actually, anyone can have our exact design, our structure that's been designed from it, and all these aspects which you can measure in whatever 3D software that you kind of use.
mm.
And that, like, not in 20 years' time, but in a few years' time, that's going to be the case. And that to me is really exciting.
Yeah, that is really exciting. That's a really interesting approach, and I'm so glad you guys are taking that because that's, like I said, the narratives are starting to shift and people are starting to be more open source. But there's just as many projects in Web3 that are choosing not to be as well. And I think that you guys have kind of embraced like the true nature of the LUKSO ecosystem as well. Fabian is super on board with being open source. The last year during the hackathon, he recommended that everyone keep all of their GitHubs open, and like probably 10% at most did. So like that narrative is still actively shifting over time, and for you guys to be ahead of that curve and see the benefit of things, with obviously recognizing that like sure someone could go steal my design, but I'm okay with that because that's my design being used again.
Yeah.
Hopefully they took it and made it even better. It doesn't really
Even.
matter, right? Because you have the design, you might have already sold it, right? So why not keep using it?
And like, I guess this goes back to our notion of what is a beautiful yacht. I think that's relative, or that's at least subjective. And
Hmm.
so if you make it better, so to say, what does that mean for the end like owner? Maybe they are very happy with the yacht that we have designed, and someone else is happy with that copycat almost. And so we have the opportunity to be different and be comfortable with someone, being different from us too. So yeah, I totally buy into that.
That's great. That's great. Let's hop into some of the future plans for Metayacht Studios. Innovative projects already blooming. What are some other exciting things that you guys have down the road? Maybe potential partners or just potential ways of thinking, new designs, anything like that that the listeners should be aware of?
Yes, we are churning some stuff. Let me try and formulate something that is going to be an interesting answer. I think like where we see like ourselves in Web3 is trying to be as interoperable as possible. We get excited by the thought that we could potentially use like Candor Digital's product in terms of recycling materials, such as our interiors, for example. We get excited about using your 3D assets in the likes of Canvas Land gaming or gaming in general. And and so like what we are trying to accomplish is creating that phygital experience of that digital aspect and physical aspect, primarily because we want to give a much better experience to the people who will be buying our yachts, and that being able to rent your yacht out easily because it's just a key, being able to turn on your engine because it's just a key. All these aspects, all these benefits to the stakeholders that I mentioned, owners, designers, builders, that all comes from just focusing right now on building and engineering, designing our first 12-meter limousine tender. And so that will ultimately hold around 6 people. Again, the design is subject to change a little bit, but the idea is that this is going to be a transportation vessel to get you from point A to point B in a really luxurious way. And I'm actually excited because Yellow Turtle, you won one of our community contests where you finding your own color, material, finishes for the interior of this limousine tender. And these things take time, and in Web3 there may not be time for projects, but we're here in that bear market, and we have to kind of just think differently to other projects who are just trying to get things done quickly. We have to engineer to the standards that we have to engineer to for us to even sell the physical product. And ultimately, I think coming soon we'll be launching that limousine. And once we launch that limousine, we have then the ability to go to yacht shows and showcase our yacht in a virtual reality space and say, well, look, you can experience our yacht here, but also you can experience your yacht at home. And then if you want to upgrade your experience to something that's physical, please be our guest, purchase our yacht using LUKSO too. And so that gets quite exciting for me. It's really a cornerstone of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that was a great answer. And if there's one takeaway that the listeners should get from this episode is that you guys are not building your normal project. You guys are going out, thinking outside the box, going above and beyond with the way that you think about your business model and the way that you want your customer to feel and the end user of this experience, and thinking about the ways for interoperability and kind of opening up this access for almost anyone, right? The yachting industry has always been an exclusive one, and you guys are kind of are really trying to step away from that. And that's a really beautiful thought that people will be able to enjoy these experiences without needing
Yeah,
X amount of money, right?
yeah. Yeah, before planes, everybody who traveled was a sailor. And so, it's we're trying to get people excited about being on the water again, sharing our passion, getting them to even like understand what it's all about. Because you have some people who are landlocked countries, can finally get inspired, get excited about yachting, and potentially become a really amazing yacht designer just because we have adopted a more tech approach. And again, it's just facilitating a good experience. In yachting, like one of the main focuses, and I think everyone who designs and builds yachts understands that the yacht is just a vessel. The experience that you get from being on a boat, to sharing with your friends, to going on an adventure to a hidden island, all that is actually the exciting thing that gets people into the space that we're in. And so we want our vessels to be exciting, modern, something that you haven't seen in the real world before, but also in the digital world too. And so yeah, we're really excited about it.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So we try to keep these around 30 minutes, but before we go, for any of the listeners out there in Web3, in yacht design, or both, what are some resources or advice that you would offer for them to dive deeper into this space and start to learn more about the overall space and then your project in specifics? And then where can the KEEZ, LUKSOfam community support and get involved with Metayacht Studios?
Yeah. So one, our Twitter is at Metayacht Studio. You'll find us. We have a blue logo that looks like a bow of a ship, but it's actually a M and Y. So that's something that maybe people have noticed, maybe not. And from there, you can find our Discord link, and you can see some Medium articles that you could read through, talking a little bit more in depth about some of the issues that we are trying to solve. In terms of supporting us, I think like one, joining our Discord, getting involved, just having a conversation, even if you're not a yacht designer or not even in the yacht community, that is really helpful for us. We're obviously really early stage right now, so that's going to be a blessing. We have an OG titles that are really OGs before we even have developed anything in terms of launch, and we'll be rewarding them somehow. So yeah, please join. There's a few of us. There's not a lot of us yet, but hopefully that changes. And in terms of like direct support, if you are not even a part of a yacht club, but you live near one, tell us who that is. You can DM me, you can say that in our Discord, because we want to be reaching out to these people sooner rather than later and telling them how like we can help them engage and involve their yacht club in however manner. So that would be really helpful. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think another thing, sorry, Yellow Turtle. By the way, I have probably an hour's worth of notes. So keeping it to 30 minutes, I've cut quite a bit. So we're going to have to do another one.
Exactly. All that means is we need a part two.
Absolutely. But I think like one of the things that we have adopted in our culture is if LUKSO succeeds, we succeed. If KEEZ succeeds, then LUKSO succeeding, and then ultimately we succeed. As a network and as a culture, the way that we see it is if you are helping and testing universal page, for example, or if you're interacting and contributing with KEEZ, I'm sure we will find a way of rewarding you via yachting in Metayacht Studio. And so like that's another benefit of this technology, is that we can then quickly see who has been involved in the community as a large network. So just be involved and we'll find a way. But yeah, the Twitter is Metayacht Studio.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us, for being the first guest co-host.
Let's get it.
Usually Beef signs us off, so I'm just kind of winging it right now. So as always, to everyone that's listening, this is not financial advice. It's just two dudes talking about what they love. So have a good one.
Peace.